Thank you for joining. Hope everybody's well. Just give it a few minutes and let people join. So Guy, hello. Hi Sophie. Yes, I'm good, thank you. Thumbs up, Sophie. Can you hear me okay? Hi Lorna. Evening, Guy. Hi Sophie, thank you. Right, I'll leave it a little bit longer, see if anybody else is going to join, just so everybody's aware. This will be recorded and I'll put it out on my Instagram tomorrow on my IGTV channel. So, great sound, good. Been practicing where the best place is to do it, because I was talking to somebody earlier and they said I sounded like I was in the garden. So give it a couple more minutes, see if anybody else is available, and then we'll get going. Oh, there's a dog coming down the stairs behind me. Hello, boy. Sophie, have you got Amber with you? Okay, I'll give it till 32 and then I'll get started. Thanks, Guy. Loud and clear. Okay. Right. 30 more seconds and then we'll get going. There were a few other people who said they were going to join, so I'm just waiting to see if they appear. Oh, she's looking at all the food. I hope you can't hear the panting going on behind me. It's not hot, but the dog pants a lot. Okay, so I'm going to start. So I might look a little bit weird, but I've got my notes next to me on my laptop, so we'll keep looking over to make sure I'm not missing anything. So I just wanted to come and say hello. I'm Marianne. My nickname is Mads, which is why my business is called Socially Mads, in case you were wondering. And I work from home based in Northampton in the UK. And before finding the wonderful world of social media, I worked in financial services and contact centre outsourcing, more recently in customer experience and customer services for a big high street bank. So the purpose of this evening's session is really, I was thinking about, I wanted to go live and share something. And I think for me, social media and overwhelm in particular is quite a bit of a hot topic at the moment. So that's what I chose to talk about today. And I've been making some notes on things that I've learned along the way and various tips that have been shared with me. So I thought I'd bring it all together and share it today. So I think the first thing I must say is I am not a trained psychologist or a mental health professional. So these are just my tips that I've picked up along the way. Little bit of housekeeping. Those of you that are really familiar with lives, this will be old news to you, but if it's one of your first ones, at the bottom of the screen you should see you've got the comment box. I know you're all using that because you've used that, and next to that there's a little question mark icon. So if you've got a question that you'd like to ask, if you just click on that, then that will pop up and I'll be able to see that much easier than the comments. So let's get going. So one of the things that I really love about social media is the fact that it's a really supportive community. And one of the terms that has become known to me since doing Tech Pixies is tribe. So that's why I wanted to get together today. So what I'm going to talk about is aimed at people that are social media managers like myself, but also people who love social media. So Guy, I know you're one of those, very keen on social media. So I've got 7 tips I'm going to go through tonight. The first one is the longest, so bear with me. So the 7 are about taking control, setting limits, making sure you make time for yourself, making sure you've got time to, you're actually sleeping and getting some thinking time, making sure you take a break, resting your eyes, and then finally asking for help. So the first one, taking control and being positive. So I think for me, it's really important to have a positive feed. And Sophie, one of the things I love about your feed, it's always lovely and pink and smiley. And I think that's really important. So the first thing is avoiding that fear of comparison. So don't get dragged into comparing yourself and your feed and your life and what's going on with what you're looking at. And I think one of the things that's really important to remember is that most people are showing their best life. not the everyday drudgery and things that get them down. So if you are feeling down and you're seeing everybody out and about, that's not what they do all the time. They're just showing you that on social media. I know it's slightly different at the moment with lockdown, but I think that's something really important to be thinking about. And not everything that we read is always positive. And what we need to choose how we do something about that. So for me, there's a lot of it is about FOMO. So I've got various, hi Claire, I've got various social media accounts. So I've got one for the World of Interiors and I've got one for Slimming World. And I sometimes have to have a word with myself to make sure I'm not comparing our lovely home with some of the homes that I see in the World of Interiors, because I think to myself, well, you know, they might have an unlimited budget or perhaps an unhealthy credit card balance. And I know what I'm doing is what we can afford within our budget. So I focus on that. And then on Slimming World, when I'm looking at these people who have amazing transformations, I have to look at myself and think, well, you've lost 4 stone, Marianne. That's really bloody good. Don't compare yourself to that. Think about your journey and what's important for you. So how can you deal with that? If having a word with yourself is not enough, then think about the unfollow or even the mute button. On Instagram and Twitter, you can mute, and on Facebook, you can unfollow somebody whilst you still remain friends with them. So I think that's something to consider. And also on Twitter, you've got a mute feature. So you can mute keywords. So I've got all sorts of things muted, ranging from Brexit to Love Island. I'm personally not a football fan, so I have a lot of football stuff muted, so that when I'm scrolling through, it's just not there in my timeline. And that's one of the reasons I love Twitter lists, because you can set up a list. If there's a topic you particularly want to know about, but you don't want it in your feed, you can set up a list and then you can go and look at it when you want to. Another tool that I've come across in various training courses is what's called the circle of concern and the circle of influence. Oh, hi, Aid. And it comes from Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Successful People. And I think it's a really useful tool to use if you're feeling overwhelmed. So what they ask you to do is basically think about, first off, list everything that you're worrying about. So all the things that are in your control and that are not in your control. So depending on the type of person you are, it could be anything from global warming, the economy, attitudes in society, things your friends do and say or don't do and say. For me, I'm irritated by how people park badly because I live on a terrace street. Things people are saying about you or not saying about you, your own personal goals and your business goals, and maybe, you know, a lot of people are doing couch to 5k. List them all down and then draw 2 circles, one larger one and then inside a much smaller one. And in the larger one, put down all the things that you cannot directly control. And then in the smaller circle, put all the things that you can control. And it's a really good way of getting yourself to focus on the things that are what they're called in the smaller circle as a circle of influence. And then once you're focusing on the things that you can actually influence, you can be much more effective. And you find that your circle of influence will grow and others will see you as a much more effective person, and you'll feel so much more in control. It's such a really good tool. I wanted to share that with you. And those of you as social media managers, if you follow Miller from Pink Storm Social, she actually posted this morning. She calls it something slightly differently. But if you're visual like me, I'd say go and have a look at her profile and that post this morning. But what I've done is I will share it in Linktree so you can have a look at it. A couple of other things that I do in terms of taking control is follow accounts that make you happy, something that makes you smile. I don't know if any of you have seen that Matt Navarra has shared in the last few days an account of sort of social media tongue-in-cheek stuff called Sipping Social Tea, and I do find that quite amusing to have a little look. So if you haven't found it yet, go and have a look. But I also follow accounts for my favourite holiday destinations. Condé Nast Traveller shows some amazing destinations, and I look at those and think, oh, I could be there. That looks lovely. Facebook, I think I mentioned earlier, got a black Labrador. I'm in lots of black Labrador groups, and there's so many people at the moment sharing pictures of their puppies. So that sort of stuff, it makes me smile, and it's really nice to look at. Take a deep breath. Right. Next thing I want to talk about in control is about comments. So there's nothing worse than getting a negative comment. So I always try and think about, one of the things that my granny used to say was that if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. So when I'm commenting on somebody's post or story, whatever it is, I always think, well, what can I say that is positive and supportive? And don't be negative, because I think what you give out is what you get back. And I think that does have a negative impact on us if we are posting negative comments and receiving them as well. So I think that's a really good mantra to follow. And then one of the other things that I do is I have a daily gratitude log. So each morning when I'm having my breakfast, I write down what it was that I was grateful for the day before. And then at the end of the month, I go and look at that list and go back through everything that I was grateful for. And I find that it's a really useful tool. So if you've got a spare notebook, give it a go. And then the last thing that I was going to talk about in control, you'll be glad, is something called micro stresses. This is something that I came across in a female leadership course a couple of years ago, but it actually has been out in a Harvard Business Review article this week. So I've already popped that up on my link tree on my profile if anybody wants to go and have a look. But basically the principle is that every day we come up with micro stresses, but they're so micro we don't really realise what they are, but after a while they build up and have an impact on you. And this research that they've been doing, they've narrowed it down to sort of 12 common micro stresses, and they categorise those into 3 sort of areas of your life that you can encounter them. So the first one is about draining, what they call draining your personal capacity. So an example of that is when you get unpredictable behaviour from someone. The second one is depleting your emotional reserves. So an example of that is perhaps having a confrontational conversation with somebody. I'm not very good with dealing with confrontation. It's not something I like at all. And then the third one is where somebody perhaps challenges your values. And for me, that is a really difficult one to deal with. So when somebody undermines your sense of self-worth. So that one's already up in my link tree. I think I said that. But they also share some tips on how to deal with that. And they suggest that you identify 3 of the micro stresses that you're dealing with at the moment. And they give some mechanisms to cope with those. So I'd really say go over and have a little look. So I'm just going to pause there. I'm getting a few waves and some likes going up, but not any questions as yet. Let me just check. No questions. So I'm going to move on to my next tip, which is called time limits. Now, I think most of you have an iPhone. I think you perhaps have a Windows phone. So if anybody's got an Android, then please do jump in with how it works on an Android. But one of the things... Hi, Clarissa. One of the things that really surprised me when I've started working in social media is the number of hours a day that we spend online. And for me, that's my phone. But the average is 6 hours a day. Android 8 is saying, okay. So for me, that's predominantly on my phone. I am on my laptop as well, but predominantly when I'm engaging, I'm using my phone. So my first tip is be purposeful. So it's really easy to pick up your phone. We've probably all done that. Wake up in the morning, my phone is my alarm, and start scrolling through, and you can lose an hour or 2. And I've done that, so I'm sure I'm not alone with that. So my first tip is think about when you're going online, what is it that you are there to do? So for me, it could be posting content or engaging with that content after I've posted it. It could be hashtag research or content research, or it could just be catching up with what my friends and family have been up to. But make sure you set yourself a time limit, otherwise you can just lose time. Something I've only found out about recently is that on your iPhone you can actually track the time that you're spending on your phone. So I was having a look at this earlier just to see how much time I'm spending on what. But so if you go to settings, you can go to screen time, and then you can see your daily average. It comes up straight away in a bar chart. And then underneath that, you can click on see all activity, and then you can get more detail about which are your most used apps. Now, for me, I was a little bit shocked because I thought I'm not on that much. So my daily average is 5 hours and 50 minutes on my phone. And my most used app is Instagram, followed by Facebook, the camera, and then WhatsApp. And I thought I used WhatsApp online a lot, but obviously I use my phone a lot more. So I think it's really good to be aware of this. Oh, thanks, Sophie. So you can actually go a step further if you want to. Once you've done that checking to see how much time you are on your phone and using the different apps, you can actually set limits on each of your apps. So to get to that, you go into settings, screen time again, and then app limits, and then you can set limits by social media. So you've got different groupings there. So if you click on social media networking, you then see all the apps that you've got downloaded. Now for me that was quite scary. I think I need to do a little bit of tidying up, but I had quite a few pages of social media apps. But you can set a time limit for each of them, and it brings up a warning on your phone when you've reached that limit that you've set. You can also set a downtime limits. That means when you're not using your phone. So at the moment mine's set up from 10 p.m. at night to 7 a.m. So basically if I go into my phone and click on an app, it will tell me that I'm out of my time limit. I can still open it if I want to, and I can open it, it will say for a minute or 15 minutes or override. But for me, I think that's a really useful reminder of what you're actually doing. Are you consciously wanting to do that after 10 o'clock at night or before 7 o'clock in the morning? I mean, I know people have different working patterns. So interesting comment here from Guy, who's doing a lot of work on Brexit, and he's saying it's changed his use of Twitter. So yeah, Guy, maybe having a look at Twitter lists, I can show you how to do that, would be quite useful for you, because then it's not in your timeline. You can actually go and look at different people. One of my people I've done a power hour with, they were particularly wanting lists was a solution for them, because they found that it was affecting what they were looking at and getting irritated by a lot of negativity. But once we set up lists, that went away. When they were feeling up to it, they could go and have a look at whatever content they wanted. So is everybody having a quick look at their phone at the settings? And then the final one for me, Guy, I've been blocking and muting. The final one for me, which I think is really good to help you focus, is the do not disturb button. I've actually got that on at the moment now, and that will silence all calls and notifications. So if you're trying to focus on something, you can turn that off, and then you don't get anything appearing on your screen. If I'm in a lot of WhatsApp groups, and I can find that some of them can be quite active at different times of the day, and I can sort of click on a notification, then I can get sidetracked and get into a conversation and think, no, actually I was supposed to be doing XYZ, so I do now use that. So that was the end of setting time limits. Any questions or further comments on that? I'm just going to have a quick drink of water. No? Okay. So I'm going to go on to time for you. So one of the things that, oh, hi Carla. One of the things that I'm recording this, I'll post it tomorrow so you can catch up. So one of the things that I think is really important is about how to get the right balance between your work life and time for you. So for me, that's about spending time with my family, my friends, getting time for my exercise, beauty appointments. I had my nails done today, very exciting. Watching your favourite box set or reading a book, whatever it is that helps you de-stress and calm your mind and kick back is really important. So what I personally do is I schedule that as an appointment in my diary so that nothing gets booked over it, so that I know at whatever time it is I'm going off and I'm doing XYZ. So I can't book any meetings. That's my time. I'm doing that. I recently treated myself to an Apple Watch, a little lockdown gift to myself, and that reminds me to stand up and move around, and it tells me how I'm doing on my steps, on my exercise, and I find that as a really helpful reminder because it will beep at me. There's other watches. I mean, I used to be in Fitbit challenges, so it's just about finding what works for you as that prompt. Even just going for a walk. I mean, I go for a walk every morning with the dog, but just going out for a walk in the morning, walk at lunchtime, get some fresh air in your lungs. That's a really good way of clearing your mind and getting some quiet time. What about taking up a new hobby? I know quite a few people have taken up sketching, and Carla, I know, for example, you've got your art business, and I know that you find that really relaxing, because I think it's really important to have something else to be doing other than the main work that you're focusing on. I'm actually a big list maker, And a lot of my friends over the years have given me lots of notebooks. And I think one of the things that I struggled with is that I would just write too much stuff on my list, and I would immediately feel overwhelmed by looking at what I'd written on my list. So one of the things that I've been trying out recently is a tip from Joy at Tech Pixies, which is what she calls the big three. So what I do now is I mark out in my book Monday to Friday, and then for each week I'm thinking, what are my big three things that I want to achieve that week? So I write those down, and then each day I allow myself 3 to 5 tasks, but each of those have to contribute to my big three. And I find that that really helps me focus on what I want to achieve. It means that I'm not becoming overwhelmed, and it means that I've also got time for doing stuff for me. So that has worked really well for me. And another tip from one of the lovely ladies at Tech Pixies, from Teresa, in one of the coaching sessions I was doing recently, is something that she calls deathbed thinking. Now, bear with me, and I did say deathbed thinking, but the way that she described it is that she'd been doing some deathbed thinking. We were like, what's that? And she said it's basically, if you're worrying about something, when you're on your deathbed, are you going to be thinking about that thing and worrying about that thing? And the answer is probably no. So really, don't worry about it. So I really like that analogy, because I thought, yeah, that could work for me, because you worry about things and things sort of build up and you think, actually, that's not that important, is it? So don't worry about it. So that was my tips on finding time for you. Next one, sleep. Now, Cara and I used to live together, so she will know what I'm like about going to bed. I'm a bit of a night owl, so I struggle with not getting enough sleep. And I know if I haven't had enough sleep, I can't concentrate properly. It takes me longer to get going in the morning, and I need a lot more coffee than normal. So a lot of what I have read recently recommends meditation. Now, I haven't tried it myself, but I am going to say give it a go, because there's a lot of people that are getting a lot of benefit from it, and there's a number of apps which I'll come on to in a minute. But I know for me, for Slimming World, sleep is a really important thing. If I haven't got enough sleep, it can affect the numbers on the scales. Sleep and drinking water are really big things. So the app that has been most recommended to me is one called Headspace. So I don't know if any of you use it. There's also an app called Calm, but Headspace seems to be the one that more people I've spoken to actually use than anything else. And also Spotify has a wellness playlist. I don't know if anybody knew about that, but I think that's really useful, because I think you do need to be able to switch off and relax. My problem is about not going to bed early. Oh, Calm is very good, thank you. It's not going to bed early enough. I tend to like to switch off and sit and watch box sets, and it's so easy to do next. And I went through a really bad phase of suddenly thinking, oh my God, it's 2 a.m. and I'm still sat here watching something. So I've stopped that. That's something that I've stopped, and having the time thing on my phone has really helped me with that. I don't know about you, but I can get caught up in TikTok videos, and suddenly I've lost time. So all of that has really helped. I'm definitely a work in progress, but I am going to bed consistently before midnight now, which is a big step for me, and sometimes before 11 even. Another thing that I found is that there's the chap that does the shipping forecast on Radio 4. A lot of people apparently find his voice really calming and like to listen to him when they go to sleep. Now, for me, being a sailor, it's not something that sends me to sleep, because it's about telling you where the storm's coming, so you need to be aware of it. But his voice is very calming. Oh, Sophie says something called 1 Moment Medication is great. Oh, okay, meditation is great. It's an app and works really well. Right, okay, I'll have a look at that. So the Radio 4 shipping forecast, it's aired daily, 5:30 in the morning, 10 to 1 at night, so perfect for me, and 6 o'clock. And he's got a very lovely voice. So some people listen to that, it helps send them to sleep. It's apparently on YouTube and you can listen to it. And then the other thing I do is Pilates. So my Pilates instructor has gone online, She's pivoted her business, so she has a YouTube channel, so you can go and download anything and watch it whenever you like. She does Zooms and Facebook Lives. So she does every morning, she does a 15-minute breathing and relaxation. So I've been doing that as well, and I found that really useful. So there we go. So tip number 5, take a break. So do you ever take a break from social media, even if it's just a short break? So that could be going for a walk, ringing a friend, reading a book, just switching off and doing something completely different, getting up and stretching. I know being a social media manager, that's not always that easy, but do you switch off in the evenings and weekends, or are you still working? Do you use a scheduler? I'm a big fan of Later and Buffer. I know there's a lot of, Carla, I think you're using Agora Pulse, aren't you? Sophie, I know you used to use Later, but I don't know what you're using at the moment. But I think that definitely helps, but you have to be conscious of what you're doing. Is there a co-worker that you can perhaps ask to monitor and engage on your behalf? I think that's really important to have a network of people that you can do that with, so you can actually switch off. Carla says she has enjoyed taking some breaks. That's really good. We're supposed to go away in October, depending on what's happening with COVID. So I need to really think about how I can do that, because my husband doesn't take work with him, so he will be completely on holiday, and I've got to work out how I'm going to do that. So it's a bit of a challenge. Any other tips? So I've got another one from Joy, and she's a big believer of having all notifications turned off on everything all of the time. Now, I'm not sure I could quite do that. I do turn off, I think I've mentioned earlier, WhatsApp, but when I'm working, I don't turn off the notifications for my apps. Maybe I should, but that's another tip I wanted to share, because Joy absolutely swears by it. And the other one related that she's got, which again I haven't done, but some of you might have done, is where she says that she, at the weekends and evenings, she actually deletes the apps from her phone so she can't be tempted to go and look at them. I think I'm definitely a little bit of a control freak, so I'm not sure if I could actually go that far, but that is another tip I wanted to share. I do also try a phone-free day, not always that successfully, but I do try and do that. If I'm working on some content creation or a strategy, I will put my phone away and not look at it, and that does help, because I can easily get sidetracked. And then another thing that I do is I try and arrange a social get-together with a friend at least once a week, perhaps not so much since we've been doing lockdown, but whether that's a coffee or a lunch, so that I've got something to focus on in the week that's not just work, and look forward to that, and actually go out of the house and do something. So that's my tips on taking a break. So 2 more you'll be pleased to hear. So the next one is give your eyes a rest. I think that's really important, and for me it's about how can you just put your phone down, or, well, not necessarily put your phone down, but use it for something else. So podcasts for me are absolutely brilliant, and then there's been a couple recommended to me. So one called Happy Place, where Fern Cotton interviews even some celebrity guests about mental health, and a couple of recent people that have been quite interesting has been Ricky Gervais and George Ezra, and also Holly Tucker. Sophie, I know you're a big Holly Tucker fan, so I thought you might find that one interesting if you're not tuned into that one. And then there's another one that's called Feel Better, Live More with Dr. Chatterjee. So it's more about how to get new habits to stick, and tips on getting through a good night's sleep. So I'm definitely starting to listen to that one, see if there's any tips I can take. I'm a big rugby fan, so I tend to listen to rugby podcasts. So my favourites are House of Rugby, the BBC one, and the Rugby Pod. And then obviously the Tech Pixies ones as well. And I like the fact with those that you can watch them live or listen to them as a podcast. Oh, hi Daniela. So do you have any podcast recommendations? Anybody listen to any others that I haven't mentioned that help you switch off and give your eyes a rest? So one of the things I really like about a podcast is I can listen to them when I'm in the kitchen preparing food, or just out for a walk, or the recent lovely weather, I tried to get a little bit of time sitting in the garden. So I would listen to a podcast. So that was a really good way of giving your eyes a rest. Hi, Daniel. And then last one, asking for help. Do you ever... Oh, Guy says House of Rugby is a good one. Yes, it is. Do you ever ask for help? I think, if I think back to my sort of corporate world, people would often say to you, how are you? And the stock answer is, I'm fine, or I'm okay. Or actually, perhaps you weren't, or people weren't okay, but it didn't really necessarily feel the right environment to say anything else. And particularly when I worked in financial services, there was a lot of work done on creating an environment where it was okay to speak up. And there were lots of senior leaders who shared their own stories and challenges with stress and mental health. And I think that did definitely help. But for me, it was still... I always felt there would perhaps be repercussions if you did actually say something. So it's one of the key things for me is about finding your tribe and finding people that you feel comfortable with, that you can talk to, finding the right people for the right thing that you want to talk to. Because sometimes you don't necessarily need someone to give you an answer. You just need to talk out loud about it and express it, and you can come to an answer yourself, depending what it is. Or if you've got the right network around you, they can give you the support that you need. So it's, for me, it's about finding the right people that you can talk to about whatever it is. Hello, boy. And there's one of the things that has been, I think social media has been really good about through lockdown, is there's been some guides issued on Instagram. So you need to find an approved account, but they give helpful tips on wellness and mental health. So one in the UK that is really good is called Heads_Together, and they've got a good library of resources there, and you can actually share them to your story, so you can share them to other accounts. So I think that is really useful. So that is me. I've come to the end of my 7 tips. I know the first one was a bit long and convoluted, so apologies for that. And I probably rambled on a bit because I have a habit of doing that. But I'm hoping that there's, within all of this, there's something that's perhaps sparked something in you that you think that this can help me, or you want to have a conversation with somebody. But hopefully it has helped, and there's something that you've thought, yeah, that's a good idea, or I haven't thought of that, or I'm going to try that. I will be sharing it on my Instagram tomorrow, I think I said at the start, so I'll pop it up on IGTV, so you can go back and listen to things. What I'll do is I'll put in at which point each tip is, so if there was something you particularly wanted to go back and find out, I'll just put the minutes to make it easy. You can scroll through. So thank you for joining. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Oh, thank you, Sophie. I hope everybody enjoyed it. I'm off to go and have a nice gin and tonic and a cuddle with the dog on the sofa. So enjoy the rest of your evening, and thank you everybody for joining. Take care. Bye bye.